Welcome to another deep dive. We're all about taking the information you're interested in and bringing you those key insights. And today we're diving deep into AdviserAsset. It's a tool designed specifically for you advisors out there to really simplify your platform analysis.
That's right. And what makes this even more exciting is that AdviserAsset now integrates directly with FE Analytics.
Oh, that is great news for anyone already using FE Analytics.
Absolutely. We'll be exploring all the core capabilities of AdviserAsset during this deep dive, like how it streamlines the process of consolidating and switching platforms, how it makes comparing charges super easy, and how it can even assist with your platform due diligence.
And all of that enhanced even further through this FE Analytics integration.
That's exactly it. And one of the things we're hearing so much is how user-friendly advisors are finding AdviserAsset.
Yep, really. That's great to hear. User-friendliness is essential for any software, but especially in such a complex area as financial advice. So I'm keen to dig into the specifics. Let's start with what I hear is often the biggest draw for advisors, that consolidation and switching tool. What is it that makes this particular tool so popular?
Well, the heart of it is its ability to bring together all of a client's assets, even if they're spread across different investments, like pensions and other investments. You've got different wrappers.
Right, because people don't always have all their eggs in one basket, so to speak.
Precisely. So AdviserAsset takes all of those different assets and puts them into a single analysis. And that is critical for accurately understanding the total costs involved when you're looking at different platforms.
It's giving you the full picture, not just a piecemeal view.
Exactly. Because platforms charge their fees based on the overall value of the assets held with them.
Right. You're not paying for each individual investment in isolation. It's all part of bigger picture.
Exactly. So AdviserAsset reflects how platforms charge in the real world. And this comprehensive approach has actually gained recognition. AdviserAsset was actually named the most innovative consolidation software, precisely because of its ability to do this, to aggregate across different wrapper types.
So it's not just convenient, it's also seen as best practice in the industry.
That's right. And especially today, when proving fair value is so crucial, this ability to see everything together, it's incredibly valuable.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, with all this sophistication going on behind the scenes, I imagine it could be quite intimidating to use. Is it actually easy to get to grips with?
Yes, definitely. User experience has been a huge focus.
Yeah.
And what's great is that the interface is consistent across all the tools within AdviserAsset. So once you've learned how to use one part, the rest will feel very familiar.
Oh, that's great. So no need to start from scratch every time you want to use a different tool.
Absolutely. It's very intuitive.
That's good news. So let's walk through how you'd actually use it. Let's say you have a new client. How do you initially set them up in the system?
It's very simple. You literally just need their name and date of birth. You enter that once, and it's then accessible across all the tools within AdviserAsset.
So no tedious repetition every time you want to run a different analysis.
Exactly. Keep it nice and simple.
I like it. Now, when it comes to comparing costs, how do you factor in your own charges, the advisor fees?
Well, you set that up once as well. You create a library of your different charging bases. You give them clear names so you know which is which. And then whenever you're running an analysis, you just select the appropriate charging basis to apply. It's like having your own personalized cost comparison toolkit ready to go.
Very handy. So you've got the client set up, you've got your charges defined. What about the platforms and the portfolios themselves? How do you handle those in AdviserAsset?
AdviserAsset gives you a lot of flexibility. You can actually build your own custom platform definitions within the tool, so you can really reflect the specifics of what's being offered.
You're not limited to a preset list of platforms then?
Not at all. You have that control. And to make things even easier, for certain key partnerships, like the one with 2Plan, a lot of the portfolio data is pre-populated.
Oh, so it saves you a ton of time right there.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Now, before you jump into the numbers, does AdviserAsset help you explain the current landscape to clients? I mean, the investment market has changed quite a bit in recent years.
Yes, it does. It actually often presents a useful market context. It highlights the big shift we've seen from a focus on individual products to a world that's much more centered around platforms and total assets under management.
Right. It's not just about picking the best performing funds in isolation anymore.
Exactly. It's about the bigger picture, and AdviserAsset really emphasizes that.
So it helps to explain why this whole approach is so relevant to clients. Okay, so you've set the scene. You're ready to compare a client's existing arrangements with potential new platforms. What's the key metric you're looking at here? What's the core of the comparison?
The central figure is what's called the reduction in yield, or RIY. What AdviserAsset does is it calculates and compares the projected RIY of the client's current investments.
Right, so how much their existing investments are expected to yield after charges.
Exactly. And it compares that with the potential RIY if those assets were moved to a new platform.
So you can see the impact of costs on their projected returns.
Precisely. And this is where it gets really powerful. Comparing existing schemes can be quite complex, right? You've got different growth assumptions, different time frames, all sorts of variations.
Yeah, it can be a real headache trying to make a fair comparison.
It can be, but AdviserAsset handles it brilliantly. It can handle multiple existing schemes simultaneously, even if they've got different growth rates, different approaches to inflation, different projection periods. It brings all of that into one unified analysis.
So no more juggling multiple spreadsheets or trying to force everything into the same mold.
Exactly. It does the heavy lifting for you.
That's a huge time saver. And speaking of time saving, how about the process of adding details of an existing scheme? I believe it's called seeding in AdviserAsset.
That's right. And it's designed to be really straightforward. You just choose the type of scheme, like a pension, for instance, and the tool presents you with a tailored form. Of course, the pension form is going to be a bit more detailed than some of the others.
That makes sense. Pensions are complex beasts.
They are. But even then, they've managed to streamline the data input onto a single page for pensions, which is a vast improvement over older systems.
One page for all of that pension information. Yeah, that sounds like a miracle.
It's a big time saver. And to make it even easier, wherever possible, AdviserAsset will pre-populate data based on what you've already entered. So you're minimizing the manual input required.
Oh, that's fantastic. So what kind of specific details can you include about an existing pension, for example?
Pretty much everything you need. You can input regular contributions, any protection on their tax-free cash, even information about former protected rights. It's really comprehensive.
It paints a very full picture. What about time frames? Existing schemes might project to different retirement ages. How do you handle that?
Well, AdviserAsset will automatically set the analysis period based on the client's age. So typically it's projecting to age 65. But if you have a projection that goes to a different date, you can adjust it. And here's the clever bit. The tool will then automatically adjust the projection values to ensure you're comparing apples with apples.
That's really smart. So you're always comparing like for like, even if the original projections had different end dates.
Precisely. It makes sure the comparison is fair. And speaking of things that can get complicated, growth rates are another potential headache. How does AdviserAsset handle those?
Well, it comes with the standard FCA growth rates preloaded, which is usually sufficient.
But you can always change the inflation rates if you need to. And you can even apply different inflation rates to different growth rates for more complex situations.
Wow, that's a lot of flexibility. You mentioned that pensions can be complex, but it sounds like AdviserAsset can handle just about any complexity you throw at it.
It's designed to be as flexible as possible. And if you have a projection with multiple fund-specific or asset-specific growth rates, which can get really detailed,
I can imagine.
AdviserAsset has a built-in calculator. You can put those different growth rates in, and it'll calculate a weighted average to use in the analysis.
So it's doing all that complex math for you.
Yeah.
I like that. What if you don't have a full projection for an existing scheme? Can AdviserAsset still help?
It can. You can still run the analysis even without a full projection. Just put in the current fund value, the transfer value, and the charges.
So it can work with partial information.
Exactly. And as a helpful check, it'll also calculate the initial RIY based on what you've provided. So if that RIY looks way off, you know to double check your figures.
That's a good safety net. Now, we talked about advisor charges earlier. How do they actually get factored into the comparison of the existing schemes?
Well, when you're inputting the details of the existing scheme, you include any advisor charges that are being applied. So you're getting a true comparison of the total cost. Your fees are included alongside the platform and fund charges.
All right, so it's a complete picture of the current cost versus the potential cost on a new platform. What if there are potential downsides to moving, though? What if the client might lose some benefits by transferring?
There's a specific section in AdviserAsset called Benefits Lost on Transfer. You can record any relevant details there, and then those details are documented in the report, so it's all transparent and above board.
Fantastic. So you've inputted all the details of the existing schemes. What's next? How do you actually see how a new platform stacks up?
The next step is to choose investment portfolios for each wrapper within the new platform. And you have flexibility here. You can choose different portfolios for different wrappers if that suits the client.
You can tailor it to their individual needs.
Exactly.
And can you refine the list of platforms you're considering or factor in things like switching costs?
Absolutely. You can filter the platforms based on your criteria, and you can definitely include estimated switching or rebalancing costs in the analysis. You can also factor in ongoing charges on the new platform, and even consider things like family linking.
Family linking. Tell me more about that.
That's where you can aggregate the holdings of multiple family members, which sometimes can lead to more beneficial platform charges.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're looking at the whole family picture.
Exactly. To see if there are any extra savings to be had.
Very clever. So you've done all the input. You've chosen your platforms, your portfolios, factored in all the costs. What does the results page actually show you?
It gives you a really clear summary. You see the ROI and other key metrics for both the existing schemes and the new platform or platforms you've chosen. And what's really great is that it calculates the ROI for the new platform on an aggregate basis.
So again, it's that holistic view. It's not just comparing individual products. It's looking at everything together.
That's exactly it. And that aggregate view is something that sets AdviserAsset apart from a lot of other tools. But if you do need to drill down into the detail, you can click on any individual product line and see a full breakdown, including things like critical yields and required rates of return.
So you've got the high-level overview and the granular detail all in one place. That's excellent. And what about the final report? What does AdviserAsset produce?
The report is designed to be really clear and easy to understand. You have a nice executive summary, which a lot of advisors find useful to include directly in their suitability reports. It clearly sets out the basis of the comparison, the platforms that were considered the chosen platform, and it provides side-by-side comparisons of moving all assets versus maybe just moving some individual schemes.
So it's a comprehensive audit trail of your analysis. Is there a key summary section within the report, a place where all the crucial information is condensed?
Yes, there is. Typically, it's around page 4. It's a really concise summary page. It brings together the existing schemes that were analyzed, their transfer values, a description of the analysis that was done, the movement in ROI, any potential uplift in fund value, and the critical yield. All the key stuff.
All on one page. That's fantastic. Easy to digest and easy to share.
Absolutely. And then the rest of the report provides the detailed backup for all those figures.
Perfect. So we've covered the consolidation and switching tool in great depth. Now, you mentioned there's also a charge comparison tool, which is meant to be super quick to use. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, you can think of it as an extension of those aggregation capabilities we've been talking about, but this one focuses specifically on new investments.
So if a client has a lump sum to invest and you're considering different wrappers for it.
Precisely. You want to quickly compare charges across different platforms for that new money. That's where this tool comes in.
And you said it's incredibly quick to use.
It is. Once you've got the client and the portfolio information saved in AdviserAsset, running a multi-wrapper charge comparison for new money can be done in literally seconds.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
It sounds like it really lives up to its name. Okay, so we've got consolidation and switching. We've got charge comparison. What about due diligence? Obviously, that's a huge part of an advisor's responsibilities when it comes to platforms. Does AdviserAsset have a tool to help with that as well?
It does. It has a dedicated platform due diligence tool, and it's specifically designed to help advisors meet their regulatory obligations, to demonstrate that robust process when selecting platforms.
To prove they've done their homework, essentially.
Exactly. And its purpose is to help you compare your own business requirements against the offerings of lots of different platforms in a very structured and efficient way.
Sounds very thorough. What's involved in setting it up initially?
Well, you start by defining the scope of your due diligence process. Are you doing this for the whole practice, or are there specific client segments you want to define requirements for?
So you can tailor it to your own business structure.
That's right. And in terms of the actual comparison, it's all based on a simple database approach. You input information about your practice's needs, your priorities, and the tool compares this against its internal data on a wide range of platforms. It highlights any discrepancies.
This is showing you where platforms align with your needs or where they fall short.
Exactly. And the interface is really user-friendly. It's organized with tabs that align with the key considerations for platform due diligence. So it's easy to navigate. Now, the initial setup does take a bit of time. You want to allow maybe 45 minutes to an hour for that.
Because you're really defining your practice's specific needs.
Right. But once that's done, running those due diligence checks is super quick. Just a few clicks and less than a minute usually.
So a bit of upfront investment for huge time savings later on. What kind of information does it gather about your practice during setup?
Things like your practice type, the back office systems you use, whether you use DFMs, and your current platform usage. That platform usage data is also really valuable for FE Fund Info themselves because it helps them gather feedback on service quality.
Right, so it's feeding into a bigger picture of how platforms are performing. What about the portfolios you might already have set up in AdviserAsset? Does this due diligence tool connect with that information?
Yes, it integrates with the My Portfolio section, so you can use your existing portfolio data to assess how well different platforms can actually support and deliver those investments.
Well, that's a very practical link. And you mentioned service quality feedback.
Yeah.
How does the due diligence tool actually incorporate that element?
Well, by tracking advisor platform usage, it can prompt users to complete questionnaires about their experiences. So you're getting real-world feedback on how those platforms are performing from a service perspective.
So it's not just about the hard facts and figures, it's about the actual user experience.
Exactly. It's getting that qualitative feedback. Now, the main output of the platform due diligence tool is an executive summary. It shows you the percentage of your must-have and nice-to-have requirements that are met by each platform, and then it ranks the platforms based on how well they fulfill those must-haves.
So you can quickly see which platforms are the best fit for your practice. Does it also give you more detailed information on any unmet requirements?
It does. It provides a full breakdown listing all the specific must-haves and nice-to-haves that aren't met by each platform, along with any relevant notes or explanations.
So you can understand exactly where the gaps are, and the report itself is quite substantial, isn't it?
It is. It typically generates a 90-page report, which documents the entire due diligence process and the findings.
So you have a thorough record to support your platform decisions. Now let's move on to what you described earlier as a game changer, the integration with FE Analytics. Can you walk us through how this actually works in practice?
Well, the key thing is that you can now directly import client portfolios from FE Analytics into AdviserAsset.
So you're not manually re-entering all that data.
Exactly. You can seamlessly move from analyzing investments in FE Analytics to doing detailed charge comparisons and ROI analysis on different platforms within AdviserAsset.
That's a huge time saver. How do you actually access AdviserAsset from within FE Analytics?
It's all built in. You'll see a new tab on the left-hand side of your FE Analytics screen called Platform Analysis Tools. You just click on the feature you need, and it'll take you straight to the relevant tool in AdviserAsset. No need to log in separately.
It's all connected. So just to sum up, FE AdviserAsset with its 3 core tools and now this FE Analytics integration really seems to offer a comprehensive and efficient solution for advisors.
It really does. It puts so much power at your fingertips. The ability to do detailed consolidation and switching analysis, efficient charge comparisons for new investments, robust platform due diligence, and it's all designed to be really user-friendly.
Even with all the sophistication going on behind the scenes, the focus is on making it easy for advisors to use in their everyday work.
Absolutely.
It sounds like a really impressive platform.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're listening to this and you're thinking about how you currently analyze platforms for your clients, maybe it's time to consider how this integrated approach could simplify your workflow and give you deeper insights into the true cost and suitability of different platforms.
It's definitely worth exploring.
If you'd like to find out more, head over to fefundinfo.co. That's fefundinfo.com.
You'll find all the details there.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into FE at AdviserAsset.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.